Welcome back to the table, everybody. And we just played some of the newest games by Yellow Games.
Three games.
3 of them. We played The Animals of Baker Street, Distant Suns, and Break the Cube.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, we liked some of them better than others.
That is definitely accurate.
But we did want to share with you kind of our initial thoughts on the games after we just played them, but also kind of leave you with a idea of who we think these games might be for and who these games might not necessarily be for, because that's kind of what we generally take away. After I play a game for the first time, it's like, yeah, I could see me playing this again, or I could see people who like this or this
Or I
playing
might
it
recommend
again.
it to this person, but maybe not to that person.
Exactly. So we have a little bit of like that to share for all of them. So we're not going to go detailed into how you play these.
No.
We're going to try to give you a very brief overview of each game. And we're going to start with...
The Animals of Baker Street.
Yeah, this is a mystery sort of detective game. This is not a deduction of any kind.
No.
The way it plays out, you're all anthropomorphic animals.
There's
there
4
are
of them.
4 characters, and you can divvy those up however you see fit. But you're always going to be playing with all 4 of them because they bring
their own unique little abilities.
Yeah, they have like
what
kind
they're
of
good at.
abilities, and by abilities, they're kind of vague notions about narratively what they're good at. Because they're going to be interacting with cards and sort of unlocking new items and clues and whatnot. But for the most part, it plays like an old-fashioned point-and-click adventure.
Yes.
It is kind of, it's narrative-driven, but when I say that, it is mostly for a younger audience.
Yes.
Because it's like reading a children's book, kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure, but more of like an interactive story.
Yeah.
And we played through the tutorial.
And the first
And
mission.
the first mission, and it looks like they sort of escalate from there.
Get a little bit longer, a little bit more involved. But basically what you're doing is you're going to locations, and you can interact with those locations with another type of card, be it a character or an item or whatever, and you line them up, and if they line up correctly, you might get another piece of information, an item, or the story progresses somehow. You kind of just keep going through it until you can unlock the mystery of whatever that is.
Yes, and so who is this for? I would say very squarely and specifically,
yes,
this is for family with young kids. And I want to say a little bit more about that. This is not for a group of young kids to play by themselves.
No, because there's a lot of reading.
There's a fair amount of reading, and I think it's going to skew on the younger side of young kids, at least with board game families, if you will. But they're going to need someone who's able to read, do all the reading, because there's a lot of reading in it.
Yes.
And it is children's book style reading, but to me, it felt like the kind of children's book that I remember reading to my children.
Yes.
Not necessarily that a child would read. And once they're able to read it, I think they might be up for different games than what this experience is offering. Who it's not for is generally the opposite of that, but I would definitely say if you're an enthusiast group of gamers that don't have kids.
If you don't have kids in the group, I would say you're probably not bringing out the Animals of Baker Street.
No, there's other games that do similar types of things these days that I think I'd recommend more than this.
I would say if you have kids, though, it could be a good gateway towards it.
For sure.
Right? If you're like, oh, they're not quite at that age yet, but I want them to see what this kind of experience is like, it's great. If someone could play a deeper game, you would take something.
Yeah, if you're really itching for anthropomorphic characters, go with Everdell. And then play an escape room or some other sort of mystery game. The next one we played was Distant Suns.
Yes.
Distant Suns is not a roll and write, but it is what they call a choose and write.
In the same vein, though.
It is definitely it's a blank and write. What you're doing, we have the board here. Now, there's some variability to the way this is set up.
Yes.
And when you choose, you're using these kind of cool shaped tokens to choose one of these rows, and it's effectively this shape of hexagons that you're going to sort of outline on your star map.
And then what the other part of it is you do one row, and everyone else does the other row. So you're choosing both what am I going to do and what am I going to make everyone else at the table use for their next shape on their board.
Yeah, and on your board, you're trying to do a number of different things. Now, those things are the same every game. There's no sort of variability with respect to the scoring other than how it changes with the tiles that get laid out here, because these tiles, every one of these spaces is a tile that can be taken out in this dual layer board and put back in there. So it will offer some variability, a little bit, but it doesn't give you that flavor of like, oh wow, this feels like a completely different game.
I don't think it'll be wildly different in play versus play versus play versus play.
It's just different shapes
Yeah.
and different things that you have to navigate when you're doing this.
Who would you say this game is for, David?
I would say this game is for people who are hardcore, like have to have every roll and write.
There you go.
If you have a lot of roll and writes, if you like the category of game, this game is going to bring a nice little twist to that.
Right.
It's not groundbreakingly new.
No.
It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, this is now my favorite roll and write
Yes.
or blank and write. But I do think if you have a big library of roll and writes, flip and writes, now choose and writes, this adds a little something.
A little new color flavor.
A little something to it.
I would say it's not for people, though, who are going and trying to say, I just want to play games that do something groundbreaking, something really new, right? Because
sure.
I think you're going to play it and feel like this feels like a lot of other roll and writes that I've played before. And if you've played a lot of them before, you might say, like, you know, how is this really that different?
Yeah, or compare the two. I mean, there's a lot of those games on the market.
It becomes easy to compare them. Yeah.
We've often talked about like there being puzzle ones and there being sort of combo-centric ones. This is probably leans more on the puzzle side in terms of how you're piecing these things together and there's things to navigate. I would almost say it has what it ends up giving you in the end may not be as much as what it looks like it's supposed to give you at the beginning with all these components, everything, but potentially another roll and write to add to your collection. Lastly, and if you can't tell, this is probably the one we're going to be most excited about, is Break the Cube. This is a deduction game with an incredible amount of spatial awareness of what you're building and what you're piecing together. And if you watch the channel at all, you know we're both, particularly
big
Emily,
deduction fans.
but we're both deduction fans. She's just way better at them than I am. But in this game, as you can see right here, you have these little boards, and everyone gets three cubes of the same type. There's like a little 2, a little 3, and then a sort of L-shaped 4. Yeah. And behind your player screen, everyone has one of these screens, and they build one of those. You can put those in any configuration, along with, there's a few rules. You know, they can't be...
Just 3 rules.
Yeah, just 3 rules. It's very easy to follow. But that's secret. And then each player is also going to have one of these, and they're trying to guess what the structure is to the player on their left. Or in a 2-player game, just the other player. So it kind of ends up feeling a bit like Mastermind.
Yes. Wow.
But head-to-head, so that both people are trying to figure something out. And the game ends when someone figures someone's puzzle out.
Breaks the cube.
This one was really interesting because it's very simple to play. Honestly, this is like a 5 to 10 minute teach. Well, yeah, the teach is super fast.
Easy.
You say build these.
Look at the thing itself. And it just shows you the rules basically, and you're like, okay, I got it. That's all I need to know, really. And
the interesting thing, and we'll probably talk about this one a little bit more, that we discovered, because we played it at 2 players, and then my son came out and we played it at 3 players, and we were both certain
that it'd be better at 2 players. I was like, there's no way this is better. It plays up to 4, but we were like, that's probably just you could have more people play, but it doesn't seem like it would be fun at a higher player count.
And it was more fun. Like, without question, we were just having more fun. Now, that fun wasn't because of the thinking and the mechanics involved with the game, because I do think those mechanics lend themselves to a head-to-head sort of showdown. But for whatever reason, we were just having more fun at it, because on your turn, you're asking questions to the person on your left, but some of the questions make everyone at the table answer. Including yourself. So there's just this significant amount of flow of more information at the table with more players. Yeah. So even when it's not your turn, or where you're not the subject of the turn, you're able to glean some information about the person you are trying to figure out. And you're also worrying about, if they ask about this, I might give a lot of information about my situation here. There's also a bit of more of a timer element, right? Because if I'm looking to the person to my right, and I'm like, oh no, I see what they're like thinking about guessing, and it's pretty close to right, I gotta get mine right soon and guess soon, because I know they're gonna win the game and just end it. It's really interesting, and it does take some spatial awareness here, because you can see you build these things up, and the questions that you're answering, you're reporting on what color you see if you're looking down in any one little area, or you're looking across the little grid and saying, okay, this is on the bottom, this is on the top, this is on in the middle and the top. So people are hearing those and going, okay, well, I guess it could be this. It ended up being a very interesting deduction game, And probably the best thing at all, borderline genius thing, I've never played a faster deduction game than
No,
this.
it's so quick. It's super quick. And even, especially with more players, someone's going to get it, right? Even if you end up getting stuck and you're like, I don't really know where we're at with it. It's just so quick. The turns are super quick. You're asking just one simple question. It goes all the way around. Most of the time, I think we had probably 5 questions on average before someone was getting it.
In our 3-player game, I think we each asked maybe 2
questions?
2 or 3 questions each. So yeah, I would almost say it's filler-esque in terms of the amount of time it takes.
Yes.
So lastly, who's it for? Who's it not for? Obviously, it's for us. I would say it's for deduction fans for sure. If you're a deduction game fan, this is a fantastic addition. I don't know what the price point it is, but it's a small little box. It can't be much.
Good stocking stuffer.
I do want to mention, this is a spiritual successor to Break the Code. I remember playing that once upon a time, and I remember not enjoying it as much as I enjoyed this. So if you played Break the Code and didn't like it, don't rule this one out. I would also say if you're looking for something that gives you deduction in a very short amount of time, fantastic.
So who's it not for? I mean, if you don't like deduction, this is not your game.
It is definitely not for you.
It's really the one mechanic going on.
Yeah.
So there's not really a whole lot of other things you could be looking at otherwise, except for the pretty colored blocks, I guess. And then I would say, too, there's a little bit of dexterity in it because you are creating these structures to make your guesses. So if you're somebody who, I mean, I guess like young kids and stuff, too, like if you can't create these structures accurately, that could be a
that
hindrance.
is true, and because you're doing it in secret, no one else at the table knows whether you've screwed up or broken a rule. But again, unlike other deduction games, it's so fast that even if someone screws up like that, you just reiterate it and you play again. Because I know that can be a turnoff on other deduction games where someone makes a mistake and like, oh, we just spent a half an hour playing this. I would also say it maybe not necessarily for deduction fans who do want that meatier experience.
Sure, the other
because some people want to labor over their decisions and really figure things out. This is pretty quick.
And it has a notes section where you can take notes too.
We
never
did that.
With more cubes. We didn't do it with notes because I think it's fast enough that you don't necessarily have to.
It is. You can kind of remember what you asked. Although I have to admit, there's a couple times where I'm like, oh, what did I ask the first time? Because I'm pretty sure I asked this. And you're constantly manipulating sort of your guess tablet for the player to your left the whole time. So
we're definitely a friendlier table. We'd be
we'd help each other out.
That's not possible with what you've already asked.
We'd help each other out. There is a nice pad though, and you can play it harder by adding more blocks, which we haven't done, but I think we'll probably try that. But anyway, those are the 3 games we just played. We've got Distant Suns, we've got Break the Cube, and we started with the Animals of Baker Street. If you have any questions about any of them, please make them in the comments below. We'll answer everything we can. Until next time, of course, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.